There's one more statistic. A student who can read on grade level by third grade is 4 times more likely to graduate. Again, it's just the same idea. Third grade is really one of the pivotal areas. In fact, there are some states in America, I don't know how they think they can do this, but have issued their third grade guarantee. And their third grade guarantee is by third grade, your student will be proficient in reading at that grade level. What's the problem with making a guarantee like that? How do you fulfill it? Yeah, how do you fulfill it? But really what they're saying is, we're going to create an intervention model or a prevention model to support the students who are not reading on grade level. Now the other thing I want to share with you this, and we touched on it in the first session. The greatest gift a student can have is the gift of reading. Why? Because they can access any information. It's even more important than being proficient in math, because if I can read, I can access the mathematical concepts and then I can work on that on my own. But if I can't read, my ability to access information is going to be a bigger and bigger struggle. Okay? So we want to look at prevention. Now, you're going to see up on the screen, let me see if my clicker is working. There we go. Oh, there we go. Okay. Let me back up one. I'm not being patient. So in this session, we're going to look at redefining our focus a little bit. And notice the statement, a growing body of evidence suggests that almost all reading problems are preventable. And this is based on research. Now, the things that we're going to discuss today are not ideas that I created. In fact, I want to give you one book that's come out recently, right here, Fresh Look at Phonics by Wiley Blevins. Now, as educators, we're always looking for an excuse why our scores and achievements are not at the level we want them. Okay? In literacy, what we do is we go on this up and down cycle. And what the up and down cycle is when I was in school as a child, phonics was how we learned to read. And there was a real emphasis on phonics and sounding out the words and being able to decode words. But you know, after a while, the scores weren't what people wanted, so phonics must not be working, right? So why don't we try whole language? And then we shifted over to whole language and word recognition reading. And the whole issue with word recognition reading is I only read as well as my vocabulary. And I have trouble sounding words out and doing words that I don't know. And so after a while, our scores aren't what we want them, so what do we do next? Yeah. And in the States right now, over the last year, the science of reading, it's a big set of buzzwords for us right now. And you know what the science of reading is? Is routines that support phonics, decoding, and those types of things. Now, the other thing I want you guys to realize because of COVID, when you think about reading, there are 3 major kinds of reading programs. And when I say major kinds, I don't mean brand, not like McGraw Hill or those other inferior companies that are out there selling reading. I'm just kidding, kind of. There are 3 different kinds of programs. The first one is what we would call a comprehensive program. A comprehensive program is like Wonders. And what that means is it has foundational skills, it has genre studies, it has literature, it has spelling, it has grammar built in, it has writing support built in. It's comprehensive. Anything that we're going to do in the ELA block from K to 6 is in Wonders. Wonders allows, because of the way it's built out as a comprehensive, it allows the teacher to have choice. So, I'm going to learn the skills that are part of my genre set for this week or in grades 2 through 6 in my 2-week unit of study. And then when I go to apply that, I'm going to have several different ways I could apply it. I could apply it in the literature selection as part of the anthology. I could apply it in the leveled readers, I could apply it in a trade book, or I could apply it in another book that I want to pull into class to support those skills that we're looking at in that 2-week time period of study. Now, a comprehensive program, if I have a skilled teacher, probably the best choice I could make because it allows them to use their insight and their flexibility into how to do that. The second type of reading program is a basal. A basal is more focused. For an example, we have Wonders as our comprehensive, right? Our basal program is open court reading. Basil, B-A-S-I-L. It just means foundational, okay? Open Court is our Basil. It's more structured than Wonders. In fact, a teacher could pick up the teacher edition and it'll say, day one, you're going to do this, and it really is kind of laid out for them. It's not scripted, but there's more of a narrow focus too. There's a huge focus on foundational skills. There's a huge focus on decoding. The literature is not as broad as what you're going to get in a comprehensive program. And in fact, some of it is what we would call crafted literature or created literature specific around the skills. Wonders has that too, but then after you do that to look at the skill, you go into authentic literature. OCR, or Open Court Reading, is going to be more focused, but where it's really effective is if I have high teacher turnover or if I have new teachers, they can come in and pick that up. They know what they're supposed to do. They don't get confused by the choices they have to make. It's not that one's better than the other. It really is for my school, my students, which is the better focus. The third one is called direct instruction. We have a couple different direct instruction programs. Our one that's typically used for like K-8 is called Reading Mastery. Most teachers do not like direct instruction. You know why? Because it's scripted. Here's what you say. Here's what you say to the students. Here's what you do. And you follow it. And as teachers, we don't like somebody telling us exactly what to do. That's no fun, is it? Where direct instruction comes most into play is two different instances. One is an intervention. In that case, in my building, it's not for every single one of my students, but it's for my students that struggle with reading, especially in those foundational skills of K1 and 2. If they're up in 6th, 7th, 8th, even in high school, we have a second program called Corrective Reading that really goes back and focuses. It's a direct instruction program. It focuses on foundational skills, but the difference is the ideas and the literature students working with are about grade level topics. So I'm not reading a first grade book as a 10th grader. I'm reading informational text and fiction that more is appropriate to my age. But it's still in that intervention purpose. The other reason we would use direct instruction is as a core replacement. It would replace a Wonders or an Open Court Reading where the majority of population of my students are struggling with reading. And it can be used as a reading replacement. The thing about direct instruction is this. It's research-based and it works. Even though we don't like it because it's that scripting and I read it, it works. And especially I'm going to tell you guys, for your upper L, for your middle grade students, and for your high school students that struggle with reading, there isn't a better gift you could give them to get a direct instruction program, whether it's from McGraw Hill or somewhere else, that goes back and teaches them how to read. And that's going to be based on those skills that they missed in K1 and 2. Okay? So we're going to look at this. Another guy you'll see it mentioned in here at the top of that, the forward of this book is by Doug Fisher. If you're not familiar with Doug Fisher, he's probably one of the premier literacy researchers in the United States. Written a ton of work with Nancy Fry, with John Hattie, with some others. It's all based on research. But the other thing, Doug Fisher actually has a school that's kind of his laboratory. So he's not just creating this out of the blue. All of this is through work they've done with actual students. And he's one of the authors on our Wonders program. But not only is he an author on that, he's a consultant in every program we do about literacy within science, within math, within history. So we just want you to know it's not our work. Wiley Blevins is not one of our authors, but this research that's come out recently is important in how we approach reading, but how we approach it from a prevention standpoint. Okay? So we're going to go in and take a look at this. Now, many of you will have seen this before. This is simply the reading pyramid. Everything rests on phonemic awareness. And really, this is a very simple version of what happens in reading. And in fact, if you want the graphic, I'm going to put this together in a handout that you guys, that we'll send out with the emails with that kind of thing. But if you want this, just Google the reading pyramid. again, just like the SAMR model, you got 100 different versions of it. All this means is these are the skills that students need to be able to read. Because what is the goal of reading? It's comprehension. So we have to start out with phonemic awareness. We then move into phonics, phonological awareness, decoding words. Once we decode, we start to build fluency. Because we don't want a student to have to actually go back to every sound in the word. We wanted to be able to fluently decode and fluently use the phonics. Once we start to build fluency, students actually start to exponentially build their vocabulary. Because by being able to sound out the words with the letters and hear that, many of those words I already know, but I'm able to pull that in. And the other thing that happens is if I'm reading actual text, I'm able to use the context clues because of the vocabulary I already have to discover what some of those other words mean. Now, I actually have 4 grandchildren, and I know you're thinking, boy, you don't look old enough to have grandchildren. I am, it's just deception, okay? But used to, with the oldest one is 5. Her name is Avery. I live in Denver. She lives in Indianapolis. I don't get to see her near as often as I'd like to. When she was 2 and 3 and 4, I would go and I would always get to read her bedtime story. You know, a lot of fun to get her up there, read the words to her. When I go now, at night, she now reads me the bedtime story. So she has these books. They're called Bob books, B-O-B books. And you guys, some of you guys have seen them. They come in the little box. They're 4 or 5 pages long. There's a few words on each page. And I can actually listen to her start using these first 2 skills and even start to use context clues. So you can tell immediately which are her sight recognition words. You can tell which ones she's having to sound out, but she knows them. And then if she sounds it out and starts to hear the word and doesn't know it, she turns around and says, "Grandpa, what does that mean?" Because she's building the vocabulary now. But what she's doing with those Bob books is building fluency. Okay? She's working on those skills, those first 2 level skills, and then building up into fluency. And the more we do that, that's how we learn to read. If we miss steps in those skills, that's where we get the 3rd graders that are reading below grade level that are consistently going to go all the way up. Okay? Now, when we think about this, anybody seen this one? Yeah, Scarborough's rope. Now, the only difference between these 2, between the reading pyramid and Scarborough's rope, is Scarborough's rope breaks it out into a little more definition. So really 2 basic parts. Word recognition on the bottom in the blue, language comprehension up there in the red. If you can't do the blue, you're not going to get into the red. So you'll notice down here, phonological awareness, decoding, sight recognition. Those are those basic skills that then let us move into the top part. That top part, looking at literacy knowledge, what's my background, what do I know of structure, as far as writing goes, what do I know of purpose, whether it's informational text or whether it's fiction. Moving up into verbal reasoning, the grammar and language structures, vocabulary, and then the background knowledge that helps us understand context clues. Really what it's saying is that you have to have both of these as they tie together. That's where we end up down here where we want. I end up with skill reading and I'm fluent in reading. Okay? The only reason I'm bringing this up, this is kind of where the research around the science of reading is right now. We need to explore it with students, all of these different areas. But if the struggle with reading is happening, it's happening on the bottom part of this. Now, if I haven't been using this, and I was talking to my teachers about it, and we were exploring what we're doing in literature, I would actually use this model, because it's much more simple to comprehend, but the more you get into it and you start to break it out, you're going to see this. Okay? Now, there are a couple different things I want to look at with you, and I'm going to skip this one. We're not going to take the time to compare it because we lost a little time. What do we mean by phonemic awareness? And how does this fit in with some other things we know are important? So I'm going to throw an umbrella up here. Okay? The umbrella I'm going to put up here is the whole idea of phonological awareness. Okay? It's a big umbrella. There are a lot of things under this. when we talk about phonological awareness. I don't know about you, but I often wonder why as educators we have to use the words "you." Okay? If you're a K1 and 2 teacher or you're an administrator that deals with them, phonemic awareness, you know what that means. When you're a high school teacher, you think, what are you talking about? Is that a disease? What is that thing? And even with a parent, their phonemic awareness is not really good. What's wrong with them? Is it, are they going to survive? What's going to go on? I don't know why we have to use these words. Phonemic awareness is just the sounds. It's the sounds independent of the letters. So if we look at this, we've got phonemic awareness. Over on the other side, this goes more to the language structures, using words and sentences. We have to be able to do that. You're also going to see on this side onset and rhyme. What's the beginning sound? What's the ending sound? Okay? That's a skill that comes from phonemic awareness, but it's part of phonological awareness. Let's throw a few others up here. Okay? The ability to recognize syllables. That's part of a skill we need in reading, but it's not part of phonemic awareness. It helps build after we have that. Now, how many of you have actually done the clapping game with syllables? Yeah. Can count out the syllables. If a student is having a struggle recognizing the syllables, what do? Because every time the chin drops, you've got a syllable. Okay? We're just helping them realize the syllables. Why is that important? Because if they can't segment the syllables, they don't know how the sounds work. Okay? We got a couple of other, I don't want to take them away, I want to add to it. Okay? Rhyme and alliteration, one of the basic skills we use in helping students understand sounds. And then when we get over to the phonemic awareness part, there's a number of skills and routines that we want to use with students that actually help them start to discern what the sounds are. Then we're going to attach those sounds to the letters. But one of those is isolation. And you remember, really, that's what we were doing when I was playing that little game in the first session. We were taking a word and saying, let's isolate the sounds. But we want to get to students where they can isolate the sounds and actually hear those. We're going to see blending. How do I put the sounds together? Kind of the opposite of isolation. We're going to see addition, deletion, and substitution. And again, these are routines that we can use that help students use the sounds in order to move forward into understanding that. Okay? So phonemic awareness is the sound. Then when we get into the phonics, it's attaching the letter to the sound. Now, does all this sound really basic? Yeah. I mean, it's really basic. Why is it so important, though? Yeah, because you know what? It is very basic, but that basis is actually the way that we learn to read. And if our students don't have it, we're going to struggle with it. Now, what I want to talk to you about really is, segmenting is another one. How do I segment out using that? What I really want to share with you over the next time we have together is a series of routines that we can use, though, to help students have the skills to do all these things. Now, the difference with a routine is this. I can be in class and I can teach my students reading, but if they don't know the routines, they struggle to do the practice and build fluency on their own. That's why we want to build out the routines. Now, routines are very simple. They're nothing really complicated, but if we as teachers learn to use them, we'll actually strengthen the reading and be able to prevent our students from having some of the reading problems they have. So an example of a routine is if I take any three-letter word. Let's do the word leg, okay? Leg. Now, if I do that, leg, one of the things I need to be able to do is to isolate those sounds. So if I take the word, what is the first sound in leg? What is it? L. L. That's the first sound in leg, right? What's the second sound? What's the third sound? G. G. La. E. G. We've just isolated. And what we've done is we're using a routine to isolation. You know, there's nothing fancy about the box and the circles. But what it does is actually help the student visualize how those sounds separate. And then after we isolate, what do we go back and do? We blend. Okay? La, e, ga. leg, leg. And you know what? That's with my granddaughter. That's where you start to hear it. If she doesn't know the word, she first isolates. Okay? Now, it's not that she's using phonics to do it, but la, e, ga. Then she starts to blend. And what she'll do is if she doesn't know the word, she'll have to blend 3 or 4 times, getting a little bit quicker each time until she actually hears the word. Now, the reason this is up here is because, without any letters, is because students have to have a basic understanding of the sound that goes with the letter. Because if I have the letter up there, some of our students make the mistake of, when I see the L, the sound is not L. What's the sound? But we do see students actually trying to make the letters the sound. So we want them to actually recognize the sound so when we attach it to the letter, it actually strengthens their whole phonics routine. Okay? Mm-hmm. Yep. Now, our children, and you guys all know this better than I do, your children that their first language is Arabic, learning Arabic have a little bit easier time with the phonics. And the reason I say that, there's consistency. More than English. Now, I'm not saying they don't struggle with it, but the reason is because the script is consistent. But the problem with it, because it was developed as a whole language, Arabic was developed as a language. What was English? English is a hodgepodge. So we took words from Greek and Latin and every other language you can imagine. So the phonics is about 80 to 85% accurate, but 15 to 20% are all of those exceptions in English that really, for a second language learner, really cause a problem. So, if I take C and H have their own sounds, but C and H together don't have the same sound as the C and H sound. So it just builds a little confusion for our students. But you know what? The best way to do is students that are going to be dual language students, if they're learning both those languages simultaneously, and if they're learning them in an early age, because our brain is so malleable. Okay? Now, in that routine, then, I can do it a couple different ways. I can do that routine just like we were doing a minute ago. I can do it with, I can just do it with sounds that I'm working with the class, but I can also do it digitally. Now, when we looked at one game earlier, and by the way, these games are everywhere. They're not just in Wonders. One of the things that we've done, though, is we've taken the routines we're using and we've built them out into digital pieces that you can use with a student. But the great things about these is the students being able to practice them. Okay? Now, I'm in Unit 3, Week 1, and you're going to see as I scroll down a little bit, this week's games. Okay? Really quick, my mathematicians, how many games are there? 12. Okay? I'm working on your mathematical fluency right now. Okay? If you look at this, though, you're going to notice the games are about all the skills they're learning in this unit this week. So it's textual skills, it's grammar skills. But as we start to get down in the second line, we're going to notice our high-frequency word activity. We're going to notice our phonemic awareness activities. When I get down here, I'm going to notice my phonics activities. So we don't teach phonemic awareness first, and then we teach phonics. We work with the sounds, and then we work with the letters, building those sounds. Now, we tried this one, okay? I'm going to pull this one up real quick. Maybe I'm going to pull it up real quick. Let me do this. Oh, that's why. So if you guys don't mind me taking a second, I'm going to actually get out of that, and let's go back. Don't we love technology? Okay, here we go. Let's reopen it. Maybe we're not going to play the game. Okay, let me make sure I'm connected. Let me disconnect and reconnect just for a second. And then if it doesn't work, we'll just go on. Okay, it's not going to let me play right at the moment. So we're going to go back and open it up. The only point of the digital, and if you haven't played with it before, is the fact that students can have the practice, and the other thing that's powerful about that is when you're not there, they can still hear the sounds. Because recognizing the sound is going to build out the phonics. Now, in these routines then, and let me change this right here, there we go. Okay, so we could do that digitally in the routine, pull those down, work on the sounds. In the particular week we were in, there were actually games in there that built into routines of isolation, blending, onset, and rhyme. Then we take those same things down and we work on those routine in the phonics area. We're still doing the same things. We're doing isolation with the letter and the sound. We're doing blending. We're doing onset and rhyme. So the piece that I'm going to give you access to at the end, I'm going to give you both as a QR code and as a link, is to this Wonders Instructional Routines Handbook. Now what you're seeing on the screen right now, these are the phonological and phonemic awareness routines and the phonics routines. Some of these you've been using forever. Okay? A lot of these are not going to be new to you. The difference is in the routines, we always use a 4-part model. That 4-part model, part number 1, is define the routine. And really what we're doing, we're defining the routine for the student. This is what we're going to do and why we're going to do it. That's the step that most gets often skipped by teachers in the classroom with students. We do it with them, but we don't define the routine, and here's why it's so important. If you don't define the routine, the student can't take ownership of it. And really what we want them to own the routine and know this is the way I do this, because then I can go through and practice it and build my fluency on my own. The second thing we do is we model it for them. We actually show the routine to them and do it. Then we go into step 3, which is guided practice. We're going to do it together. And step 4 is independent practice. So think about it. Definition, modeling, guided practice, independent practice. And if you think about that for a second, all it is the gradual release model of education. I do, we do, you do. Okay? So we're going to build it. Let's take a look at a couple of these routines. Okay? By the way, all these I show you and the other ones are going to actually be in the routine handbook. It always looks like this. So you're going to notice identifying and generating rhyme routine. Almost all of them will have a teaching tip. So here, clearly state why words rhyme. Point out the part of the word that is the same, the rhyme at vowel and consonants that follow it. For example, those words both come in and it actually breaks out the letters that are part of that, okay, or the sound. You're also going to often have corrective feedback. So if the students aren't doing it right, here's as a tip as a teacher to show them how to do it correctly. That is going to help prevent the error. Because if they do the error and they repeat the error, what happens? The error becomes their reality, and that then is perpetuated. So in this one, let's do it, okay? Briefly explain the routine and the purpose. Today we'll be listening for words that rhyme. Rhyming words have the same ending sounds, and after we do that, we're going to make a list of rhyming words together. So what are rhyming words? Words that have the same what? Ending sound. So I'm going to say 2 words. And notice what we've done. We're not going to stop saying, now I'm going to model it for you. We're moving into the modeling, but what did we do? We defined what we were doing at the beginning. I'm going to say 2 words. Listen to these 2 words. Let, met. Let, met. Do let and met rhyme? Okay, yes. They rhyme because they both word in the sound et. And really we're clearly stating where the rhyme is. Okay, so listen. La, et, let, ma, et, met. So that's rhyme. So now let's try it together, okay? I'm going to say 2 words. Will you guys play along with me? If they rhyme, I want you to stand up. Okay? Now remember, I have this on the screen. You wouldn't have this on the screen when you're doing it with your students. Okay? So I might mess you up and not do it in order. So if it rhymes, what are we going to do? Okay. Bet, pet. Bet, pet. Now, you guys can sit down. One thing I want to just state about this, there are two great things about this kind of activity with the students. Number one, if I just ask you to respond, many students respond, but I don't really know who's responding, and I'm not hearing it from every single student, okay? And then I'm going to have some of them that are intimidated to respond. They're shy, they don't want to say it out. So one thing is I actually see pretty quickly what every student's doing. The other way you could do it is with cards, okay? And I've used that a lot. You know what? If it rhymes, hold the card up, okay? And you get it to a quack, so immediately. You will see this with the stand up and with the cards. Some of the students are going to do this. Yeah, do I know if I stand up or not? But the other great thing about that is for our K1 and 2 students, that activity is just good for them, okay? They're not used to sitting, especially right now, it's even our upper grade level kids because they haven't been used to it, okay? So I would actually do that to you. What about this one? Let, lot. Let, lot. Why would some students stand up with that? They're hearing the onset sound is the same, and they don't know yet what the rhyme is. So I could see some standing up. That's where the corrective feedback is going to come in. And you'll notice we've got a couple others. Now in the guided practice in that step, let's try some harder ones. I'm going to say 3 words, and you tell me which 2 of the words rhyme. Let, beg, get. Let, beg, get. Let, get, et. They both have the et sound. And really all we're doing is building it up in a little more definitive. And then what we're going to do is we're going to let them do independent practice. And typically independent practice can happen 2 ways. One with paper, pencil, and so we have a practice book and they can pull that out. Because of the phonics, they can look at the words, they can underline the ones that identify. The only bad part, we want them to actually verbalize those words when they're getting it. So I don't want them to work at the worksheet and just underline it. I want them to say the words out loud, because if they don't do that, they don't actually hear the phenome that ties into the sound. And so they can look and say, yeah, the end's the same, but we want them hearing the sounds. The other way they can practice is like in Wonders, it's with the online games. So it's a great way because in the online games, they're actually hearing the sound that goes along with it. Okay? That's just an example of routine. Let me do another one with you, okay? The syllable segmentation routine. So we're going to listen for the number of beats we hear in a word. Each beat is going to have 1 vowel sound. We'll clap each time we hear a beat. We call these beats syllables. What are we going to do when we hear a beat? And what is a beat called? It's a syllable. Isn't that kind of a fun word, syllable? Okay. Now listen to this word. Basket. Basket. Now I'm going to clap the beats of the syllables. Basket. Okay? Basket. I want you guys to do it with me. Basket. So that word has how many syllables? 2 syllables. Okay? Now I want you to clap these words with me. The number of claps in the word is the number of syllables in the word. And so then we would take these words. We've got basket there, Monday. Now notice what we've done with this. Again, the students aren't seeing this because we're working on the sounds. We start out with 2. We're going to throw some 3s in there. We've got a 4. We even got a 5 in there. Okay? Now many of them couldn't read that word yet, but they can hear the word and start to discern the syllables. Now, cafeteria is actually an interesting word. Think about for a minute, how many syllables are in cafeteria? It's kind of a fun word because there's actually 5 syllables. And this is where this comes in to really help a student. Because typically they see the two letters together, the I and the A, and we do as adults and think that's one syllable. But when you sound the word out, the I and the A are actually separate syllables. Okay? Cafeteria. Okay? To do that. And then I would have them go in and practice. Okay? Onset and rhyme blending routine. And I'm only going to do one or two others with you, okay? In this routine, students are going to learn to blend the onset and the rhyme sound into a word. Right? Explain. Today we're going to be blending or putting together the first sound and the end part of a word. Okay? And we're going to use that to make a whole word. So we're going to take the first sound and the end part and put them together. So, I'm going to put sounds together to make a word. I'm going to say the first sound, then the end of the word, and then I'm going to blend them to put together. Okay? Listen to this. S, s, at, s, at, sat. See what I've done? I've taken the first sound and the ending sounds and put them together. Okay? So let's try this together, and then I would go through this list of words. So you guys are getting the idea behind any of the routines. Define, model, guided practice, independent practice. Now, we not only have these types of routines for phonemic awareness, and I'm going to skip through a couple of these. Okay? Here's the categorization routine. We then move into the whole phonics segment. And now what we're doing, we're going beyond the sound and attaching the sound to the letter and helping the students to use that. Now, I'm going to click this one up right here. S-W-I-T-H. So, give me the sound. Now, I've got a question for you. And some of you in here know much better than I. Why don't we do the T, C, and H in two, why don't we add two more blocks and drop the C and the H in? Because the TCH sound is not the sound of putting the T sound, the C sound, and the H sound together. It's one of those weird English things that go into this. And then what we would do is we would blend these sounds together. So in phonics, you're going to see actually a number of ones that go along with this. Sound by sound blending routine. Okay? You're going to see there's the blending routine with the teaching tips. Here's the building words routine. And all of these are in that handbook that I'm going to throw up in 1 second for all of you. But I do want to say this. What the routines do, if we do them through that 4-step method, it actually gives the student the ownership of the routine so they can use it themselves. We can't do enough practice just in the class time we have with early age literacy for students to build fluency. They have to have practice on their own to do that. And the reason it's so important, if they don't have phonemic and phonological awareness, they're not going to be good readers. The more we focus on this and allow students to practice in those early grade levels, the more they develop that skill set and the more we prevent the readers from not being on grade level in 3rd grade and beyond. I'm going to give you one last statement. How many of you are building leaders or system leaders? Good. I said this in the first session, but I don't think we can emphasize it enough. If you're at a building and you don't have a specific intervention block of time, whether you're in a primary school or a secondary school, we are not going to meet the needs of our students. Because if I have a 7th grader that's struggling with reading, or I have a 5th grader that's struggling with reading, the classroom teacher is not going to be able to help them go back and recover the phonemic awareness and the phonological skills they need to be a good reader. So you have to have something that intervenes, and there's got to be a segmented time to do that, or it's not going to happen. The last position I had in the school system, I was the dean of students. Did I already tell you this? Okay. My job at the high school was to take the 9th and 10th graders that were struggling students and help them be successful through high school and graduate. So I'm going to give you the example of math. In math, I would have kids coming in 9th grade that had failed 6th grade math, 7th grade math, and 8th grade math. And we just keep moving them up. And then when they get into 9th grade, guess what they're going to go into? They're going to go into Algebra 1. What's going to happen in Algebra 1? Yeah, you know. They're not going to be successful. Why? Because they're missing all the prerequisite concepts they need, and the Algebra 1 teacher is not going to be able to go back and help them recover those concepts. So there are tools that can help. There are tools like Alex and tools like Redbird. But if there's not a designated time in the building to be able to have somebody that works with those students on those primary skills, they're going to continue to not be successful. And if I'm in a class, you think about this, if I'm in a class and I don't have the prerequisite skills, what things are going to happen? One, I quit trying, because how many times are we going to try and continue to fail? Secondly, the potential exists for me to become a behavior problem, because I either do one of two things. I either withdraw or I act out. Yeah. So really the idea is if we're going to do it, we have to help our students. So let me throw this up here for you. Let me skip ahead just a couple. I had a couple other in here. And I'm going to throw this up here. Please take a picture of it. I recommend taking the picture over just doing the QR code, simply because if you do the QR code, I don't know that you want to download it on your phone, but it's going to take you to a Dropbox link that has the whole instructional handbook into it, okay? Download it and use it. If you're a building leader, this would make some great PLC or professional learning time with the teachers to actually start working through the routines. And the routines are not just K1 and 2. When you get into the grammar routines and the mechanics routines, you're actually going to find things that are in those upper elementary grade levels could support your students. For my teachers, my last piece of advice. If you haven't been using these routines before and you're starting to use them, and many of you've used them before, I would try them out with my fellow grade level teachers first before I do them with my students. Because what that does for you, it just builds a comfort level in using it to get an idea of the routine, then using it with my students. And one last comment, promise is the last one. You don't use one routine and then go to the next one and forget the first one, and then go to the next one and forget the first two. They don't build like that. You actually use them intermixed depending on the new sound that I'm doing, because when I get a new sound, I still need to be able to segment and isolate, those types of things. So you're going to use those routines over and over. These routines are the ones that are automatically built into our Wonders program, so you're not always pulling this out. It's just built in the instruction. But the reason that we actually put it in a separate piece is to allow teachers to see how routines can actually impact early learning. And the goal then is to prevent students that can't read on grade level. Okay? So the big takeaway from this session, pull the routines out. But when you use those routines, what do we do first? Define, model, guided practice, independent practice. And if the independent practice doesn't happen, fluency tends not to happen. Okay? So guys, thank you for being here today. Thank you. There are probably some of you that should have been doing this session and teaching me, but I do want to make you aware. So lunch is going to be served now. It's downstairs in the restaurant. So as you gather your stuff, just go ahead and make your way down there. Lunch started like 5 minutes ago. I don't think the other groups are in there. Pardon? No, we're closing now because we decided not to have somebody come in and bring everybody together, but we wanted to go in it and we wanted to actually pay attention to the time. Okay? So thanks so much for being here. Hopefully there is something you're taking away and taking action on.
Are you sure you have math and science background?
Pardon?
Are you sure you have a math and science background?
Yes, but I've done a lot of things over the years. And I've got 2 guys on my teams that are literacy experts, and I've worked with them a lot over the years. So we all pick up new knowledge, So guys, thanks. Enjoy your afternoon. A pleasure being here with you.